I think when you go through a traumatic loss, you don't just mourn over the person that died, but also the loss of yourself, like the person I was before. I had this misconception of that the grief would eventually leave me. It's been almost 4 years. The grief never goes away. You just learn to sort of move your life around it, and you don't move on, but you move forward.
After an event like this at such a young age, does your perspective on the intrinsic value of life changes?
It's an excursion away from your body, and you're just kind of a temporary disassociation of self. I like to think of like my hands as like an extension of my soul. And sometimes I like don't feel like the artist. Sometimes I feel like my materials and my fabric choices are more the artist than I am, in the way that they like engage and play with one another. And everybody you know and love has like 100% chance of dying. My name is Sinéad Alyse. I'm a fine artist, particularly in textiles. I do a lot of mixed media, collage as well. I'm based in Jersey City at the Manor Contemporary, and my work is rooted in kind of the abstract body, and I use a lot of different materiality and poetry to sort of express my concepts.
Can you talk a bit more about the concept part?
Yeah, so for a while, my work was really rooted in the body and sort of seeing the body as a vessel for the soul. When we lose someone, we kind of mourn over, we're really mourning over like the body remains, but it's really like the internal self, the soul is what we mourn over, but we put a lot of pressure on like our external appearances. But really the mourning is through, or your identity is really from within. So I was really kind of interested in that translation and kind of what happens to the soul when we lose someone. And I'm still kind of interested in the body and the abstraction of the body, but I'd say it's pivoted more to a lens on grief. And that definitely comes from a personal experience, a personal loss. And I still am taking the time to kind of translate that direct grief into my work. So in a way, I'm kind of moving backwards and not looking at, I think when you go through a traumatic loss, you don't just mourn over the person that died, but also the loss of yourself, like the person I was before they passed and the person I am now. And living in Los Angeles is when I sort of had this like upheaval of my life, and not necessarily in the way people would think, and maybe not like a healing way, but just in like a rupture of my existence. And it kind of catapulted me into like rebuilding the internal self, if that makes sense, and like welcoming my soul back into my body in a different means.
If you don't mind me asking, can you shed some more light into the death aspect?
Well, I guess for me, it was very sudden, and they were very young. It was my boyfriend at the time. So it's just kind of like totally
I'm sorry.
pivoted. No, it's okay. My whole life. And yeah, it was extremely sudden. And I think also through grief and mourning, you get a lot of support from people, but also sometimes that support is about like moving on and restarting, and that doesn't happen right away. And grief, I think I had this misconception of that the grief would eventually leave me. It's been almost 4 years. The grief never goes away. You just learn to sort of move your life around it, and you don't move on, but you move forward. And that's what this work is about now, is kind of like coming back into my life, and particularly allowing myself to also date again after going through something like that. I was only 23 at the time when I experienced that, and he was also very young. So it's a very weird experience, I think, at that age. But
I'm really sorry.
I don't know. It's okay.
I can actually really relate to this thing because I also kind of had a girlfriend at the time, and she got cancer and she almost died.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so it did influence my stuff as well. Like I painted a lot about like death and mourn
Yeah.
I definitely understand, like, it's so painful.
Yeah.
But I think grief actually drives, like, creativity in some way.
Yeah, it does. It really made me pause and sort of reflect on just everything. And that's where I'm at now, especially in my like relationship with dating. I think people seem to not understand maybe why I have my hesitations, but I see it as like I will and I have dated again, but the way that I approach dating is just never going to be the same. Yeah.
After an event like this at such a young age,
Yeah.
does your perspective on the intrinsic value of life changes?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's sort of what happened. I sort of then uprooted my life and I booked a one-way flight to Berlin and went there for months. And I generally thought I would go to Europe and travel and like I would come back and it would be gone. And everyone was like so excited for me and very supportive and like this is going to be a healing journey. It's going to be great. And it's actually the opposite of a healing journey. I'm so grateful for that experience. And I was able to save up for it and everything. And I don't regret it, but it definitely was not healing, I'd say. It was actually very difficult. And when I came back, I remember my last night before I flew home, I like had a breakdown in that I almost thought that like 3 months being away, I was going to come back and he was going to be alive again. And honestly, that's just not the case.
Oh, damn. I feel so bad for you.
Oh, that's all. Yeah.
Oh, that's a heavy topic.
I'm sorry. I don't know, this is like high school appropriate.
No. I talk about death a lot.
Okay.
So, do you still see him as part of you, both like physically or spiritually? And does that, like, how does that stylistically evolve into your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I don't as much include my concrete experiences with him just yet. I'm almost moving backwards. And like my work right now is kind of about my time in Los Angeles, which was like 2 years after he passed. And that was just like when I met him, I was supposed to move to LA. And that was the whole kind of somewhat strain of the relationship that I didn't know what to do because I started to really, fall in love with someone. And he was like, no, you wanted to go to LA before you met me, like you're going to LA. And then he died before I even went. And then when the time I was supposed to go in like January of that year, I didn't go because it was just way too soon and it was tough. And so then I traveled instead. And when I finally 2 years later went back to LA, I guess to me it signified me returning back to my life and like that grief, like it, I write about it like it's an excursion away from your body and you're just kind of a temporary disassociation of self. But there is a moment that you do come back into your body. It's definitely not the same and you're not the same person, but I think Los Angeles maybe represented that for me. Yeah.
Can I know more about like the writing aspect of your art?
Yeah, I've always been big on writing, even before this loss. That was like how I got all my inspiration was through writing. And then it was actually after I went through that, I think grief physically takes something away from you, like something that you were good or natural at. For me, it took away my ability to write. Like I just could not write about it. I could not express it. If I did, it was just not at all. It didn't sound like me and it didn't sound good. And now I've actually finally been able to get back into writing again, and it's been very cathartic. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you display like writings and then print them on a wall, so how would you like draw a line between something that is a literature piece and something that is a visual arts piece?
I think they're very similar, and at least in my work, and I would say I get my visual ideas through my writing first. But yeah, sometimes I am really interested in just like the general text. And that is something I think in the future I plan on kind of going more into poetry and having poetry along with my artwork.
Can I know about like the experimentation aspect of your stuff?
Yeah, I've always been very experimental. I sometimes wish I was someone who could work concretely, but I would say I'm also very big in meditation, and sometimes all my work is guided through meditation. So I'll meditate when I first come, and then I'll spend like 20 minutes just literally just whatever comes out, comes out. And I find that's when I get my best work. And I'd say I also work in fragments, like it's just like little pieces here and there. Most of my completed works were actually pieces that were done in segments over time. So yeah, very instinctual, very experimental. And I use my heat press a lot, but I'm not really using it, I guess, in a conventional way. And I also like to think of like my hands as like an extension of my soul. And sometimes I like don't feel like the artist. Sometimes I feel like my materials and my fabric choices are more the artist than I am, in the way that they like engage and play with one another, and like these things that come out I don't expect at all. So I don't really ever work from like planet from point A, B to C. I wish I did, but all my best work it never came out that way. It's always been totally actually accidental.
What do you think about that?
It's difficult to talk about.
Mm.
But in a way it shouldn't be. I mean, I watched this TED Talk recently, and she kind of went through a similar loss as mine. And she had a strong sense of humor. And one thing she said that is like true and it's funny, she's like, everybody you know and love has like 100% chance of dying. And it's like, it's true. Doesn't mean that we should always be afraid of it or let it consume us, but I think maybe it should be a guide to like just being more present and deeper in your relationships, and not even relationships, even just like Earth and your existence. I mean, we really don't know our timeline.